So before I allow him to introduce himself, I would like to read his bio. If you could please open the pamphlet. Earlier today, when he read this, he laughed to himself and said this is the most original bio that he has ever had. Donny O'Malley has led a wild and interesting life. His strict Roman Catholic altar boy upbringing set him up for an unconventional life of deviance, discipline, sex, violence, parties, adventures, and a sense of other things.
I love you, Donny!
Donny has been the skinny, shy, bullied nerd, the bench warmer, the kid stuck in the friend zone, and the depressed kid who once considered suicide, only to grow up to be an outgoing egomaniac, the class clown, the bully hunter, the team captain, the fraternity president, and best of all, the U.S. Marine Infantry officer. A decorated combat vet, a best-selling self-published author, an adventure athlete, the founder and president of a large veteran nonprofit using humor and camaraderie to prevent veteran suicide. Donny entertains and educates audiences through public speaking, acting, comedy, photography, writing, and self-deprecating humor with the intent of using laughter to bring light to serious issues. Donny believes laughter can keep people alive and that the power of an entertainer lies with their ability to influence the audience in a positive way. I had him write out one of these words because I could not pronounce it. So, Donny O'Malley is a pseudonym. Okay, I got close. Pseudonym, still said it wrong, for Danny Mayer. But let's be real, nobody's born with a name that cool. Ladies and gentlemen, Donny O'Malley.
What an introduction. I'm gonna have to find the guy who wrote that and offer him a job. All right, while that was a very kind and generous introduction that I'm very grateful for, it did leave out a few of the accomplishments that I am the most proud of. And those accomplishments being my 14 beautiful children in Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines. 6 boys, healthy boys, 6 beautiful girls, 2 on the fence, the mother's pushing them towards girl. I'm hoping they choose boy. So play football with them and all that. But all that matters is that I love them all equally. Equality. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's an honor to stand in front of you. I'm humbled by your presence because once upon a time I dreamed of doing your job. I dreamed of serving my country, serving in the military, and fighting on the front lines. That was my dream, and you guys are all living it. Minus the fighting on the front lines. Are we still at war? I don't know. Having spent good time in the Marine Infantry, I have immense love for Navy corpsmen for many reasons. But mainly and simply because they truly cared for us, and they literally kept us alive. Now, celebrating the Marine Corps birthday is always a special occasion because it brings us together to celebrate our love for the institution and our love for each other. But it's also an opportunity for us to be humbled by tradition. And I'll explain that. I have seen in some Marines and sailors that it can be difficult to take ceremony seriously after you have been tourniqueting legs or patching up sucking chest wounds, or after you've been NJP'd, or after you've been waiting for the word for too long. But I hope that everyone here takes a moment to appreciate not only the aesthetic beauty of everything that exists in this room, from everyone's uniforms, from your faces, a lot of good-looking people, a lot of great figures, to the tables, to the colors in this room. There is an unbelievable amount of work that gets put into reinforcing this tradition and this ceremony. And I hope that you guys appreciate it, because you're not going to be here forever. One day you will not have this, and you'll be dying to come back to an environment like this, like I am. Giving up my really busy Monday night to come to the Marine Ball. There is immense beauty in our military traditions because they haven't changed for hundreds of years. And there is immense painstaking attention to detail that goes into making this event as beautiful as it is, and into reinforcing tradition, which I fear is being lost outside of the military. So can we please give one more round of applause to those who made this event happen. This is so nice. I'm telling you, I'm in the civilian world. This is rare. And I know you guys, you don't have this in your trailer parks back home, so appreciate it. Soak it up. So I'd like to share some of the great memories that I have with the corpsmen that I was fortunate to serve with. I figure I'm in the presence of many Navy corpsmen. I'm in the presence of a unit that makes corpsmen. I want to share great stories of corpsmen. First corpsman that really impressed me and amazed me was when I was a young second lieutenant in 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, Echo Company. His name was Doc Figueroa, HM2 Figueroa. He was about 5'8", he was buff, he was a perfect shade of mocha with a hint of Dominican, perfectly dressed and manicured and fit, and he was proud to uphold the standard. He was one of the oldest guys in the platoon. He loved training, he deployed like 6 times, and he took it upon himself to train the Marines in the absence of the squad and team leaders, who all liked it when Doc took over, because Doc was that much of a badass that he would take over the platoon and train when the squad leaders and team leaders needed him to, and when he wanted to. On our humps, he would walk up and down the lines, checking on the Marines, offering food, carrying extra weight. He was always volunteering to carry more weight, providing water and motivation. I remember on our stops, he would walk up and down the lines and he'd say, "You better not be looking weak, Marines, but if your shit hurts, you better tell me. Oh, Doc will fix you up real good." He had a charm to him that the platoon appreciated. Next up was Doc Belford, big old country boy from Louisiana. During a firefight in Afghanistan, a little girl got shot in the crossfire. Supposedly the Taliban shot her because they knew we would call medevacs for civilian casualties. Real upstanding guys, those Taliban. So Doc Belford found her, took her into a compound, applied aid, called the medevac with some help from the squad leader, and then he carried her to the to the helicopter as RPGs exploded over his head, and I saw this. And he got back to base, and I was like, "Yo, how you feeling, Doc?" He said, "Goddamn, sir, I need to change my drawers." That was it. He had a cigarette, he was good to go. Next up, Doc Brown. He was a corpsman in a MARSOC team for, I think 6 years. He was also a Navy drill instructor. And he'd been around the block quite a few times, and he was only excited by very extreme situations. So one day, a pickup truck full of blown up Afghan army guys showed up at our base. And Doc Brown was stoked, beyond belief. He came out of his hooch, which he rarely left, and he yelled from the middle of the PB while he rubbed his hands together, as if he was about to feast on a delicious meal. And he said, "Get your hands off your peckers and get your gloves on, Marines. We got training to do." Yet groups of Marines applying tourniquets, checking the blood pressure on fading Afghans, putting jaws back on their faces, splinting bones, and I had never seen him so happy. He was giddy as a schoolgirl, in his element, teaching Marines and corpsmen how to save each other's lives. Upstanding man and sailor and corpsman. Next up, Doc Z. When I first joined Fox 25 as a first lieutenant, He was recently back from a hard deployment in Helmand. Fox 25 were in gunfights every day in the fields and wadis of Marja. First time I met him was after a Marine went down as a heat case on one of our ranges. So now the first corpsman on scene was brand new, and he was scared out of his mind as he's looking at this Marine on all fours, dry heaving, can't really think, can't speak. The guy's a heat case. What does a heat case need?
Silver bullet.
So Doc Z, with a smile, takes the opportunity to teach the young corpsman how to apply a silver bullet. He says, "Get his fucking pants off, Marine!" And then he says, "You ready to get some booty, boot?" So the young corpsman is shaking, he unbuckles the guy's still on all fours, and he unbuckles the guy's pants and pulls his pants off as a group of Marines watches. Pulls his pants off, and he gets the silver bullet, and he gets behind him, and then he gets like gentle, and he puts a hand on his back, and then he inserts the silver bullet into the young Marine. And then a few minutes later, a group of Marines is carrying the morally and physically injured young Marine on a poleless litter. They're stepping over these really big, unstable rocks on their way to the safety Vic. And Doc Z just feels like keeping the motivation going. So he says, if any of you boots drop the casualty, I'm gonna punch you in your fucking face. They didn't drop the casualty. I'm not sure if that's the verbiage that 1st Med Battalion leadership was going for, but as a young Marine lieutenant, it was inspiring. Next up, Doc McCune. Very soft-spoken, nerdy, bit socially awkward. Had this look on his face that kind of confused people and worried people who didn't know him. And when he was rocking a mustache, you knew he was touching kids. You know. When he had the stash, it was bad. One look at him and you're thinking, oh, he's not welcome in my home. But Doc McEwen was actually one of the nicest, kindest, the baddest, and most hilarious guys that I knew. And no situation could faze him. Nothing could break his spirit and nobody could mess with his Marines. The guy humped on more patrols than any of the other corpsmen in our company. A lot of the other corpsmen got away with riding on the Vicks, and he did not. He was always humping. He wasn't that big of a dude, but there was no weight that could break him. There was no distance that could break him, no gunfight that could break his spirit. He always had a smile and a joke ready for everyone that he came across. And no matter the time or place, his spirit, it just uplifted those around him. He didn't have this big presence. He didn't have this badass feel to him, no. He was just unfazed by stress, and he cared. The corpsmen that I served with exemplified all that I thought I should expect of my corpsmen. Their desire to save lives was equivalent to the Marines' desire to take lives. They were the yin to our yang, the angels on the shoulders of the killers, and the lifesavers that ensured we made it home from the very first day of training. I don't want you to forget, and I'm probably being redundant, but that's okay, that saving lives starts with training, and every single day is an opportunity to train. True leadership as a corpsman, in my very humble opinion, doesn't have to have a loud voice or a great command presence. It requires the ability to convince their Marines to train in combat life-saving every chance they get. And the Marines will complain. They'll bitch, and they're moan, and it's disgusting when I hate it. I hate it when Marines bitch, it's disgusting. But they do it. Sorry guys, you guys do it, I hate it. It's like you join the hardest branch and then you're bitching when things are hard. Come on, it doesn't make sense. Hopefully we can fix that in time. Weed that out of the Marine Corps. But the reality is they will. They'll think it's stupid at times, but you have to find a way to train them, you as their corpsman. You have to get them to train each other. Most importantly, you have to facilitate a culture of teaching and learning within your platoon. That, in my opinion, is your responsibility as the corpsman for a Marine platoon. Create a culture so that you're not the only one. If you're teaching classes all the time in combat life-saving, you're not doing your job to the best of its ability. Get the Marines to teach combat life-saving to each other and to teach it well. And if they're always teaching each other, then they're always learning. That, I think, is the best service that you can do for your platoons as corpsmen. Lastly, one of the corpsmen that I mentioned in my stories, he left the military and he hit rock bottom, considered suicide. It's a dark and sad place. And he didn't fail at anything. He was a really, really bright guy. His wife didn't leave him, didn't lose his job. None of those things happened to him. He just felt like he didn't have a purpose now that he didn't have Marines to take care of. And I'll tell you the same thing that I told him. Shut your little mouth. It is no one's responsibility to find your purpose but you. No one is going to hand you a platter of purpose on your way out the main gate. That's not happening. No one here will be in the military forever. So at one point, you're going to hit the civilian world. And when that day happens, it's your responsibility to find your purpose. You choose your purpose. You choose your path, and you choose your destiny. God, country, Corps is not giving you a purpose when you leave this institution. It is up to you to give yourself purpose. It is up to you to decide what you want your life to be like. And then it is up to you to bust your ass to make your life exactly what you want it to be. That power is yours. And there are no excuses in the civilian world, and there shouldn't be excuses in this world either. Thank you for having me. I'm beyond humbled to be in your presence. Grateful to be here. Let's have a good night.